So we are on Samach Daled Amud Aleph. Amr Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. About halfway down on the Amud. Ma'aseh benachos achas shehayse choyle b'yoseh. There was a woman who was very sick. What guy? Amra im tamed hahi isha michalya telch v'tavoid l'chol avodah zara shabaylam. If I'm going to get a refuah shleim, I'll go be over every avodah zara. Amda v'avda chol avodah shabaylam. So that's what she did. She got better, Amda, and she went and was over all the avodah zara. Like excuse me, I think it was like Yisrei. Yisrei also did it. Kivin shegiya le'pa'or to the avodah zara pa'or. Shala kanben b'mal ibn lazu. She asked, "What's the how do you do this avodah zara?" Amar la oichlin tardim v'shoysin sheicha. You eat beets and you drink beer. Must reason b'foneh, and that causes you to need to relieve yourself in front of it. Amr mutav shetachzar hi isha l'chulya v'loy tavar avodah zara b'kach. She said, "Better I'll get sick again rather than subject myself to this disgusting avodah." Atan Beis Yisrael einikin. This is the way Baal Pa'ar is ovid, but Yid not like that. And it's Badim la Baal Pa'ar. Kitsamid Pasal. The Yidden are like says, and it's Badim la Baal Pa'ar that they were they were attached, they were involved in Baal Pa'ar. They were like they wouldn't like this Isha that gave it up because it was too difficult. They stuck with it. The Yidden are like this is the joke I say about my family. We're very stubborn. I say that if we were atheists, we'd be atheists even in a foxhole. So the Yidden, when they got into something, they got into it. They didn't give up because it was difficult. And they're attached to Hashem, which like two dates that are stuck together that can be easily taken apart. So Yidden, unfortunately, they've been wayward at times they were avodah zara very firmly, and their devekas to Hashem was not as firm.
Sorry to ask you, what was the purpose of that story?
I do not know. I don't know what it doesn't sound like a very promising or hopeful story, and it sounds very negative. I think there are other pshatim that are not like this. I think, yeah. I mean, there's other pshat that they say that it's all a Pesach for Arayis. So you didn't. I don't know. It's strange. But this is a ton. And Smadon Labal Pa'ar, this mention that we say like Nitzmadon Labal Pa'ar, Kitsamid Al Yidei Isha, like a ring on a woman. That it's not so tight. They have it the other way around. By Yidden, it's Hashem, it's Davuk, and to avodah zara, it's very cursory or transient. Tanaraban. So this is the opposite inference. Tanaraban. Ma'aseh b'Safta ben Elis. Someone named Safta ben Elis shehiskir chamoyer l'nochros achas. He rented his chamor, which meant he was a donkey driver, and he said, "I'll take you around." He was like the car service driver. Kivin shigil apar, when he took her to Pa'ar, Amrullah ache kanas ve'etze. She asked him, "Wait outside, and I'm going to go and do my avodah zara." So he said to her, "You know what?" After she finished, he said, "Give me a chance." Amra loy v'loy Yehudi ata. Are you not a Yid? Amra lo. What does it have to do with you? I'm going in. Nichnis par befonai bekinach b'chaytmai. He went and he relieved himself, and then he wiped it on the face of the avodah zara. So the way I understand this Pashas is that he was trying to be mavaz of the avodah zara. That's why he said it's none of your business. I'm going in. He meant to be mavazit. But it didn't work out because they said this is the most finest avodah. there's this service that you could give to this avodah zarah. The more you mavaz it, the better its service. This is the avodah when someone relieves himself in front of the idol. Afagav the mechaven lebizu, even though his intention is to be mavazit, like we just demonstrated in the past story. Hazarik erven lamarkulis, if someone throws a stone at the markulis idol, zui avedas. This is the way of serving it. Avagav mechaven lemirgume, even though he's stoning it with the intention that he's like he stoned someone who's being killed. He went to this place, Beit Turta. They told him this is an avodah zarah. The koyach that's standing there, it's like I guess a statue. Shakal pisa shadabe. He took a stone and he threw it at it. Amulay markulis he. They said to him, but this is a markulis. When you throw a stone at it, you're being mechavet it. Amulu hazarik even lim markulis tnan. It says in the Mishnah that someone who throws an eved to markulis, not at markulis, but to it. If he's the way they would serve it was to throw it near the statue, and I threw it at it. Also, Shol Midrash. They asked in the base Medrash, is that true? Amalei Hazarik Evan Bimarkulistan. They said no, that's not what the Mishnah says. It says even if you throw it right at the markulis, it's still an avodah. Avagav Mechav Lamirgama. Even though the intention is to hit it and to be mevazed, it's still considered avodah zarah. Amalhu Ezel Ishkala. So he said that, okay, you know what? I'll go pick up the stone. I don't want it to stay there. I don't want it to be. They'll point to it and say this was the stone that Rav Menashe threw. He says no, you can't take it away. When you take it away, you're making room for someone else to throw a rock there. So better to just leave it as is. Zok the Mishnah. I can't. I don't have a lot of commentary to say on this. It's not. It's hard to understand what it means. That what was he trying to accomplish by taking away the stone? Like I said, maybe he just was embarrassed that it was there, and they said that it makes room for the next guy to throw it. What is it? The whole thing was covered with rocks, so when he took it out, then that uncovered it. It was hard to understand.
And also they say that when you went to the Beit Shammai to find out, they actually Taka said it's only stone. So why do you want to go back and take it away then? Meaning his havamina was that he threw earth and he said he thought that avodah was stones. He went to the Beis Madrash. Was
that what the issue?
Yeah, and then
I thought the issue was was he intending to throw it at it or near it? The issue was I don't think they were makbid on what you threw at it. The question was the intention. At the Beis Medrash they were telling him, yeah, you're throwing it. He said I threw it at it. I wasn't throwing it near it. But then he wanted to take it away. Yeah. Zok the Mishnah. If someone gives from his children l'moilach, this we always think of as the Incas, that they would sacrifice children. That's not what this is. It's not clear what the point of it was, if it was avodah zarah or kishuf, and also they weren't sacrificing them. Someone who gives his children until he hands it over to the attendants at the moilach, and then the child is passed through the eish. Now, passed through the eish does not mean through the actual eish. It means he jumps over the fire, like the Gemara is going to say explicitly later on. If he gave it over to the attendants, but they didn't pass the child through the fire, if the guy took his own child and put it through the eish without giving him over to the attendants, you have to do both of them. Not sure why the Mishnah has to repeat itself. Usually it's enough to just say, if you do either one of the two, it's not good. We already said, the Gemara doesn't address that, so that's why I'm bringing it up now. Katani, avodah zarah, katani moilach. In fact, the Gemara, why are we saying this din of moilach, that you maver l'moilach, and this is the avodah? If this, we already said it in the Mishnah, the previous Mishnah, we said if you do the normal avodah of avodah zarah, you're chayiv. So why are we saying the specifics of moilach? Amar Avavin Tana Commander Amar Moilach Lav Avodah Zarah. Our Mishnah doesn't hold that a Melech is an Avodah Zarah. The Tanya, Echad LaMelech ve'Echad LaShar Avodah Zarah Chayiv. If what was this? Echad LaMelech Hever Zarah Chayiv Kasav Melech. Yeah. He says whether you are someone who passes over his child, he gives it over to the attendant, he does the whole avodah. Whether he does that for Buddha, or he does it for Melech, he's going to be chayiv because it's a normal avodah. This is a way of being ovid, and if you do it to any avodah zarah, you're going to be chayiv. Rav Shimon chayiv. He says it's only going to be chayiv if it's intended for Melech, but not for other avodah zarah. And the way Rashi is going to explain it, and the way it's understood, it's like the Torah says a din of Melech. Now, why does the Torah have to tell you the din of Melech? We already said that anyone who does an avodah in its normal way is going to be chayiv. So why is the Torah telling you? So the answer is it's coming to tell you that this is also going to be included in that list of things, that if someone is maver l'melech for any avodah zarah, you're chayiv. That's the way the Tanna Kama learns it. Rav Shimon says no. It's coming to tell you that this is not avodah zarah altogether. This is a form of kishuf, and that's what it's coming to tell you, that you're chayiv only for when you do it as kishuf, but not when you do it for avodah zarah. That then we understand why it's not included in the general rule. They're both saying the same thing. Like we just said, he said it's not avodah zarah, rather it's a kind of kishuf. Chanina ben Antignus, the Tana of Chanina ben Antignus, Aimer in Ma'a Tafsa Torah Loshen Melech. Why is it used the Loshen of Melech? I mean, it's a little hard to understand the question because that's what it was. We're describing it. But Kol Shehem Lichu Alein, Afilu Tzor Afilu Kisim. It's coming to tell you that it works if a person does it l'shem Melech, means anything that they accepted upon themselves as a king, even a twig and even a stone. So, for the fact that we're talking about shehamlichu, they accept as a king, that's not avodah zarah. Avodah zarah is accepting as a deity, as a supernatural ruler. This just says he accepted as a ruler, and that's how the kishuf works. When you accept this twig or this splinter as a ruler, then the kishuf works. Rava says no. Although it's true that both Rav Elazar, Rav Shimon, and Rav Chanina ben Tignis hold that it's not avodah zarah, it's rather kind of kishuf, they still are enough. There's enough kamina between them that this second shot that we said b'shem Rav Chanina ben Tignis, that's saying afilu tzror afilu kisim, that's something that's a roy, that's something that's temporary. So he accepts even a temporary accepting of someone as a king in order to do the kishuf is going to be chayiv. But according to Rav Shimon Elazar, it has to be that Yimamish accept as a permanent ruler, and therefore there's just sort of a technical difference that arises between the two shittas. Rav Yanai said, like we said in the Mishnah, you're only going to be chayiv when you give over the child to the attendants of the avodah zarah. You're not allowed to give them over. You're not allowed to give over your children to be maver and melech. Maybe if he passes over without giving over to the attendants, he's chayiv. You have to give them over. What happens if he gave it to melech, but they never passed him over the fire? You have to pass it over. What if he just gave over to the attendants and they passed it over the fire, but it wasn't intended as a service to melech? Maybe you should be chayiv on that. Says the melech. What happens if they passed it? If they took the child and they passed the child, but there was no fire there. They just passed him over, passed him around. Never kan lahavir. But now this is a second pasuk, a different pasuk. In this pasuk is in Dvarim. It says over there eish, and it says over here lo yavir mavir. So we make a hex that the mavir over here also means beish. Uma kan moilach afal halon moilach. Just like over there, it's moilach. Over here too, it's all, when it says over there moilach. When it says eish, it's also moilach. Amar vacha breder rava havir kolzari potter. This is a very interesting halacha. It says this din that you're chayiv for handing over your child and having him passed over is only if you didn't pass over, if you didn't hand over a person didn't hand over all of his children. It has to be some of your children and not all of your children. So Taisus on the top of the Amud asks a very obvious question. What does it mean? He was saying that he only chayiv, you don't pass over all your children. But as soon as he passes over one, the first one, you're going to be chayiv for that one. What does it mean? Then he does later, then he gets potter? Either we're talking about where he only has one child. So someone who only has one child cannot be chayiv and be marvel l'malach. Or if he passed them all over at the same time. But it's in general, it's interesting that it's more chamor if you do only one child as opposed to if you do all of your children. Boy Ravashi, that's what the pasuk we learn out from the pasuk. Boy Ravashi, Hevirus Suma Mao, Yoshin Mao. If he passed over a child who was blind or while he was sleeping, is he going to be chayiv? The question is, the pasuk says that it has to be that you're passing him, you're taking him and putting him over the fire. But if the child is blind or sleeping, he's not capable of doing it himself. So is that really that you're passing him? It has to be that or does it have to be that you're passing him when he could have done it himself, or is it that's not relevant? The point is just that you're passing him. Ben benoyu ben bitoimau. What about a grandchild? Is that considered? Now we're going to see. Sometimes we send ben. We'll see what the pasuk says. And Mavir b'noyu bitay, and it says also was mizaracha. So I can answer one of them. The Tanya, ki mizarei nosan lamoilach. This is a third pasuk that we didn't see. I need noisen this panay be'ishahu ve'charti yosem v'kerev amay ki mizarei nosan lamoilach laman timeas mikdashi l'chal Hashem kachi. So it says mizarei from any of your descendants includes a grandchild. Mata b'loy, but if he should ne'amar le'yimsa b'chal mavir b'noyu bitay be'ish. It said before b'noyu bita in the other pasuk. It says when you give from Mizari. Now this misita mizari is again a different pasuk. That's the pasuk. That's not the same pasuk we quoted before, where it says I mean, the two psukim are one after the other, but we're quoting two different psukim. So, the Gemara, Tana pasuk bechiz mizarai, the sol betita mizarai. Why didn't we answer from the same pasuk? We said two adjoining psukim that both say mizarai. Why don't we quote the same one that we said at the beginning? So, Gemara drasha achrunahu zari ainli ela zara kosher. I might think it's only a zara kosher, meaning not a mamzer. Zara apostle. I mean, how do you know even if it's a illegitimate child that he's also chayiv for being over lamay? That's what we say at the end. The second pasuk tells you not only a grandchild, but not only a child, but a grandchild, and also an illegitimate child is also included. Rav Yehuda, he's only chayiv when he passes him over in the derech havara. Hechi dami, Amar Abaye shraga delivni v'mitzoy nura mehai gisa v'nura mehai gisa. You make a tower out of bricks in the middle, and you make a bonfire on each side, and then you pass the child over that. You jump over. Rava Amma kim shvarsa de Puria, like the jumping on Purim. So I actually mentioned this to one of my friends who's a Rebbe, and I suggested him that he should make a fire in his house and have everyone jump over it like they used to do. Rashi says, "Kim shavasa de Pura," that's what they did on Purim. 3 lines near the bottom of the Gemara. Ravam shavasa de Pura. Inu avir beraglov ela kovetz beraglov derech shatinoikis kovetz b'mei Purim, like the children do on Purim. Chafira ba'aretz, there was a hole in the ground, and there was a fire in it. And they jumped from one side to the other. So if when you go to a shul where they start getting all upset that the firecrackers during Haman are too dangerous, you could show them this Rashi and this Gemara that they used to have the kids. It says say the adults, the kids were jumping over the fire on Purim. Tanya Gavasa de Rava. Any chayv achiviyanu derech havara havir beregel potter. Not chayv until you pass over, but if you just walk over it, you're potter. Any chayv al yotzor yireicha. It's only if it's his descendant. Haketzad b'noyu b'itoy chayv av v'imoy v'achav achaysei potter. If it's his son or daughter, he's chayev. But if it's his father or mother or brother or sister, then he's potter. If you're passing him over, there's no din of mile. Haver atzmai potter, and if he passes himself over, he's potter. But Lazar bar Shimon mechayev. Rav Shimon says you're chayev for passing yourself over. Doesn't even have to be a child. Echad l'moilech, echad l'shar avodah zara chayev. Whether it's done, this we quoted in the Gemara earlier, whether it's done for moilech or for a different avodah zara, you're chayev. Well, so that mandama seems to hold that it's a kind of avodah zara. Rav Shimon l'moilech chayev shalei l'moilech pater. Well, Rav Shimon disagrees. He says you're pater. Amar Ula, my time of the Lazar Rav Shimon. Why does Rabbi Elazar Shimon say that, going back to the original din that he said, that if a person passes himself over, he's chayev atzmailach? Amar kol yimsa b'cha ba'atzmacha. We darshan b'cha to mean ba'atzmacha, that you yourself are included together with b'nai ubitay. Rabbanan loy darshi b'cha. Did the Rabbanan not darshi b'cha v'tnan avidosav avidis aviv shaloi kodemes? If someone sees his aveda and his father's aveda, he takes his own first. I mean, in my time, where does that come from? The Torah says there shouldn't be, eves, not even a little bit, there shouldn't be any evyonim by you. So we darshan from that, there shouldn't be an evyon. You shouldn't impoverish yourself by attending to someone else's needs before others. Over there, it's coming from Ephes. So that's not a kasha. Although you're asking that over there, we see that a person is, that B'cha, that you see that it seems to be that you're learning out from B'cha refers to the person themselves, that Lo'yeh B'cha Evyan, that you should watch out for yourself. The Gemara answers, no, it's not coming from the word B'cha, it's coming from the word Ephes. Amar Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina, Shalos Krishas Ba'avodah Zara Lama. Why does it say 3 times Karas by Avodah Zara? Before we had the question, why does it say 3 times by Hishtachava Karas? Now we're asking a similar question. It'll be a similar answer. Why does it say Krisus Karas 3 times by Avodah Zara? Eches l'kedarka. One is if you do the Avodah Zara in the normal way that Avodah Zara is done, there's a chiv Karas on it. V'achas l'shalei kedarka, and one is to tell you that if it's done not in the normal way, if it's as long as it's a way of showing respect, you're going to be chayav. V'achas lo moilech, and one is for moilech. Ulamanda ama moilech avodah zara karas moilech lamali. What do you need an extra karas for moilech? It's included with the karas that we said for avodah zara. So Gemara, lamave b'noi shaloi kedarka. It's going to tell you if a person passed his son over shaloi kedarka. That means that if he does moilech, if you hold that it's a kind of avodah zara, it's going to tell you that even though normally when you do an avodah for a different you do the avodah shaloi kedarka for this avodah zara, you're not going to be chayiv. It's going to tell you what moilech is going to be. It's sort of like kita v'nisach, like the avodas in the Beis Hamikdash. The Torah is including it that you're going to be chayiv karas for it as well. L'mand am megadef avodah zarahi karas b'megadef lamli. There's another pasuk that says karas by megadef as well. So what's that pasuk? V'nefesh ha'ta'aseh b'yad roma min ha'ezach min ha'gesh. It's Hashem. So what are we including that for? The Chidetanya. Hikaris tikaris. Hikaris ba'olam hazeh, tikaris ba'olam haba. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says it's coming to tell you that there are two creases. Now, according to Rabbi Akiva, he holds that Megadif. This is in this pasuk. That's the pasuk before. Gedavar Hashem baza. Zasei hafer hikaris tikaris nefesh he avoinei ba. And that's part of the same parsha. That's the part. That's right after this din of Megadif. So he holds Megadif is avodah zarah. So it's coming to tell you that there's a second. There's two things. It's going to be a karas la'ilam hazen or a karas la'ilam haba. Amar Rabbi Shmuel v'alek far nema v'nechasa ki shloishes alam yem yesh. They already said v'nechasa. So what do we have to say again? He karas to karas. Al v'nechasa ba'ilam hazeh. He karas la'ilam haba. To karas divrei Torah koloshim ne'adam. He will say that you don't darshan hikaris tikaris, but rather he'll say hikaris tikaris is just the regular lashon, and the earlier tikaris goes together with this one time. Even though it says hikaris tikaris, that's only counted as one, and that's coming to tell you an extra karis l'olam hazeh and l'olam haba. That means he's going to die early, and in l'olam haba he's also going to get punished. Okay. What time did we start? We started 7:20. Okay, we got a few more minutes. So the Mishnah. Bal oiv ze pitem hamidaber mishichyei. The Mishnah says that a bal oiv is someone who talks out of his arm. This is a he somehow he does something that causes, he does some kind of kishuf that makes a voice come out of underneath his arm. That's someone who does something that he puts like a bone in his mouth, and that causes a voice to come out of his mouth. So harielu b'skila. They are someone who practices this is over in skila. Vanishal behem ba'azhara. Someone who asks them for an eitzah is over in an azhara. This is a kind of kishuf. It's not a avodah zara. So therefore, the person who asks a question is not being over avodah zara, but it's a prohibited form of sorcery. And not only is it prohibited, it gets skila. And someone who that means it's prohibited beskila to be a practitioner, but to be a customer, a client, is only azhara that he gets a lot. Over here we list, our Mishnah is saying that you get skila for practicing and an azhara for asking. But in Masechtas Krisus, we have a list of the 20 something, I forgot how many, I think 36 krisis or 24 krisis, something like that. It says one of the things is a Baal Oiv, someone who is involved in Oiv. And it'll be Shaili Yudaini. It doesn't mention the second one, a Yudaini. It only mentions the one of talking underneath his arm, not the one who talks from his mouth. Rabbi Yochanan understands it because both of them are said from the same pasuk, right? The pasuk says, so since they both come from the same pasuk, so you only chayav on one if you do both of them behelam echad. So that's why over there it mentions them together. It only includes oiv. And the Gemara is going to say, since oiv came first, that's why it's both of them are referred to as oiv. Rishlakish says a different teretz. The reason why over there we only mentioned oiv and not yudaini, I'm a yudaini lefi she'ebay ma'isa. It says the yudaini has no ma'isa, and therefore you're not going to be chayav karas on it. The person's he's not doing a ma'isa. There's just a sound coming out of his mouth, or he's moving his lips and doing it, but it's not a ma'isa. Rabbi Yochanan Maishna Bal Oiv the Nakat. Why did the mission increase only mention Oiv? If the point is that they're both included, that you're going to be chayiv only one if you Oiv both. Mishum the pasuk Beikra says that one because it was mentioned first in the pasuk, so we call both of them as Oiv. Rish Lakish, my time alone with Rabbi Yochanan. Why did Rish Lakish say that increases we only mentioned Oiv? Because it's aim by Maisa, let him say the same reason as Rabbi Yochanan, that it's only chayiv one. Amar Papa chalukin heim b'misa. The Rav Papa says the problem is that it says in Legabi, when it's mentioned Legabi Karas, it says that's Legabi the din of Karas. But the Gabi the din of Misa, where's the pasuk? Misa kapir shskilas and chalkan akas kiyeh bahen oiv oyi daini mois yumsu be'evan yirg moisa. When the Torah is telling you the einish of Misa on it, then then it says oiv oyi daini. So it says one or the other. So since they're chaluk and heim b'Misa, therefore he didn't want to say, Rish Lakish didn't want to say that they're going to be put together, that they're going to be only be chayiv one. Rav Yochanan, kol kuah delav shma chalukah, the Misa lo shma chalukah. We talk about being mechalik them legabe bringing the carbon, but the fact that they're separated legabe Misa does not affect that. It only is if they're mechalik and where the Torah gave the azhara, don't do it, and it said separate. If it would have said, for example, that the shoyl oiv oyidaini is chayiv, that you're not allowed to do it, then that would tell you that you have a separate chatas for each one if they're done behela mechar. But the fact that it says separately legabe misa does not make them separate. So that's why Rish Lakish said it's b'fisha ein b'maisa and not like Rabbi Yochanan, because they're chalukim, because he said that they are mechuluk legabe misa. Rabbi Yochanan, my time Allah, I'm a Rish Lakish. Right? Why did Rabbi Yochanan also say that it's the lav she'ein b'maisa, and that's why Yudaini was excluded in Krisus? Amalach masis nekrisus Rabbi Kivi the Amaleh beaten in Maisa. He said we know that the Mishnah over there in Krisus that only says oiv and not Yudaini is going according to Rabbi Kiva, and Rabbi Kiva says Yechayev even by a lav she'ein b'maisa. Because it's not, the Gemara doesn't say it, but it's going to become clear in a minute. Because over there's a machlekes between Rebbe Kiva and the Rabbanon about whether someone is a mechuyev for Megadif, if he's Mavarach Hashem, or at least that's what we think Megadif means. We'll see in a minute. But Megadif over there, Rebbe Kiva says you're going to be chayev on, and we say the reason is because he doesn't need a Maisa. You chayev even without a Maisa, even when you're just saying something. And the Rabbanon disagree. So since that Mishnah is going like Rabbi Akiva, because it says that Megadif is chayiv, so that's also why he excluded Yudaini, where a person is medaber bepiv, because that's so you don't need a ma'isa, that's enough to be mechayiv. For Shlakish nehidolei boy Rabbi Akiva ma'isa Rabba ma'isa zuta boy. So he says back, no, Rabbi Akiva says Yechayiv and Megadif, because you don't need a ma'isa Rabba, you need some ma'isa. And to say just medaber bepiv, where a voice comes out of his mouth, that's not even a maisa zuta. So tomorrow megadif my maisa. So what's the maisa by megadif? That was what the original machlekes between Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanon was megabe megadif. So you're saying that the reason why Yudaini was excluded is because there's no maisa even zuta, it's not even a small maisa. Megadav also there's no Maisa. All he did was he said something. So Gemara Ika Akimis Vasav. My Maisa Ika Akimis Vasav Havi Maisa. Moving his lips is considered a Maisa, and that's considered a small avoid, and that's why Megadav is going to be chayiv according to Rabbi Kiva. That's a sufficient Maisa. So Gemara, if that's the case, Ba'aloiv my Maisa Ika. What is the Maisa of oiv, right? We said the reason why we only said oiv and not yudaini is because yudaini is when a voice comes out of his mouth, so that's not a maisa. But we said oiv where a voice comes out of his arms. The Gemara says, but so what maisa is there? The Gemara hakashus oreis of havi maisa. It doesn't just come out of underneath his arm; he bangs his arm together, and that's what causes the voice to come out. So that's considered a maisa. Frakting marav afilu rabbanon. Do the Rabbanon, are they maskim that banging your arms is considered a maisa? And that's why they said that we said that the Rabbanon were maskim to oiv. Vatanya ein chayil al davar sheyesh by maisa koin zivuach kita v'nisa cheshtachava. You're only chayiv for something for avodah zara, for avodas kechavim, for a maisa, like where he brings a carbon, or he burns a carbon, or he pours it out, or he bows down from Rishlakish. Man tam ishtachava. Who's the man who says ishtachava? Rabbi Kiva dam aloi being a maisa. Rabbi Kiva says he doesn't need a maisa. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Rabbi Yochanan says afilu temer rabbanon. Fuz kamasel rabbanon havi maisa. Rabbi Yochanan says no. You could even say it's going according to the Rabbanan because bending over hishtachava according to the Rabbanan. Even the Rabbanan say you need a ma'isa, but the Rabbanan hold that's a ma'isa. So that tomorrow hasu ishlokish kfiz kamas Rabbanan lehavi ma'isa hakosh reisa the baal oiv havi ma'isa. How does this make sense? Kunter ishlokish they say that bending over the Rabbanan would say is not a ma'isa, and hakash's roisav and banging his hand and causing a voice to come out. That is a ma'isa. It doesn't make sense. When a person bends over, he's actually bending over and doing something. When he's moving his arm and causing a voice to come out, that is less of a ma'isa than bending over to bow down. So the Gemara says no. That which we said that which Rish Lakish said that Rabbi Akiva that by us we only said oiv and not yidaini by krisis. That's Rabbi Akiva. Rabbanan loy. But the Rabbanan taka, when he says that, that not legabe, not oy, but yudaini. When he says yudaini is considered a maisa, that's only according to Rabbi Kiva. The Rabbanan would not be masking. In fact, the Gemara, ihachi yatsa megadif ubal oivmi bayile. If that's the case, why does the Mishnah say that it says megadif is excluded because megadif is ein b'maisa? Oiv also, according to the Rabbanan, should not be a Maisa. It said Oiv in the Mishnah. We said that's Rabbi Akiva. Then the Rabbanan disagree. They said Megadef is not true. You should also say Oiv is also not true. Ela Amar Ula b'makdir l'shed. Ula will say no. He will say that this din that we said of Hamadah B'Yadayni Zeh Hamadah B'Piv. That's talking about, Oiv is that Pitam Hamadaber Mishichyoy. He's going to say it's talking about where he's makter l'shed. So there's different Rishonim have different ways of understanding it. According to the Rambam, when you do the Oiv, when you try to get the voice from underneath his arm, in addition to clapping his arm, he also has to do as well. He also has to do as well. Burn something to arouse the demon to speak from his arm. So there's an actual Maisa that's involved. So that's the way they're going to understand where the Maisa is by Oiv, and that's why the Mishnah in Krisa says Oiv and not Yedaini, and everyone agrees with that because we're going according to Rabbi Akiva, according to who says. We're going in the Rabbanan. So you need a Maisa Zuta. So this Yedaini is not even a Maisa Zuta. And Oiv will be according to both Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva. They would both be masculine. That's not just that's a Maisa Rabba because there you're actually burning something. He asks on this, being makdil l'shed, you're not anymore talking about doing sorcery. You're doing an avoida on behalf of some kind of entity. That sounds like an avoida zara. So, and the Mishnah over there in Krisis had mentioned avodah zarah separately. Rava says we're talking about where he's being makter in order to bring out this is a way of causing shadim to appear. So he wasn't makter it to cause the shade to be created. But there's a way of like a Pied Piper type of thing. If you do this haktara, it would bring them out. But it wasn't being oived them at all. It was part of sorcery. Amale abaya makdel chayver chaverhu. But in fact, the Gemara, that's someone who's makdel l'chaver. When you try to be mechaber entities, that's a chayver chaver. So the chayra, that's only chayiv in Malkus. It's only a lav. So how could the mission of Krisos, we're talking about Karis, include chayver chaver? So we're in this particular chayver. It's true. It's a chayver chaver. But this guy is doing something worse. The Torah said Oiv Yedayni is chayiv, and Yedayni is someone who's chayiver the shadim to come to him, and that the Torah said, even though normally it's just a lav, on this the Torah said he's going to be mechayiv misa. Okay, I think we'll start the next weiter into this chayiver chaver business tomorrow morning, Bez Shem, at 10 to 8. Still good for 10 to 8?